Good morning.
Morning.
We're in Middos, Parak Daled, and we're up to Mishnah Hay. Again, to review where we are in the Mishkan, we go back to, in the base Hamikdash, we go back to diagram 1, and we've been using for our purposes, person wants to enter the Harabayas in the base Hamikdash from the eastern side. So he's on Har Hazesim, Har Hamishcha. He comes down, walks the bridge, enters the Shushan Habira gate. The eastern gate to the Harabayas is now on the Harabayas. The whole area around the base Hamikdash is the Harabayas. This first square is the Ezras Noshim. The second, it's not really a square, it's more of a rectangle. The rectangle behind the square is the Azora, Ezras Noshim, Azora. In the Azora, there is this building, and it's this building that we're learning about. This building has in front of it the Ulam, the rectangular building, and behind the Ulam is the Heichel. The Heichel is made up of two parts. Part one is what we would call the Kodesh, the Menorah, the Shulchan, and the Mizbeach HaKtoris are there. There is then a partition towards the back of the building, and in there is the Oram, the Kodesh Kadoshim. This is Ezras Noshim. This is Azora. In the Azora is the Ulam and the Heichel, and around all of it is the Har Habayis. If we go to our more in-depth picture, number 3, we entered Harabayas from Shushan Abira in this white area. We went through that Soreg, the low gate, 10 Tvachim high, demarking the line beyond which a goy could not go. We walked through this little area called Chayil, and the Chayil had 12 steps. Each step is a half amma high. So you went up 6 amos, and you're now elevated 6 amos in the Ezras Noshim above the rest of Harabayas. 15 steps before Shar Nikanor, each step a half an amma, that's 7.5 amos. You walked into this area called Azora, and now you are 13.5 amos higher than Harabayas. You elevated yourself 6 amos here to the Ezras Noshim via the 6 steps in the Chayil. You elevated yourself another 7.5 amos above Harabayas by using these 15 steps, and now you are in Azora. Ezras Yisrael, if you were permitted Ezras Kohanim. At the Ezras Kohanim, there was another step, and then there was the Duchan upon which the Leviim sang the Shira each day, and that was another 2.5 amos. So once you came into the Ezras Kohanim, you can see on your diagram it says Ezras Kohanim, you are now 16 amos higher than this area. The area around the walls is the Harabayas. You're 6 amos higher when you're walking in the Ezras Noshim. You're 13.5 amos higher as you are walking in the Ezras Yisrael. You are 16 amos higher when you walk through the Ezras Kohanim. And now when you pass the Mizbeach and get to the Ulam, there are 12 steps in front of the Ulam, each step a half amma high, that's another 6. 16 and 6 is 22. This structure, Ulam and Heichel, if you walk inside of it, you are 22, you're over 45 feet higher than you were when you were standing in the Harabayas. So the Beis HaMikdash worked this way. You walked into the Harabayas, you walked up steps, you walked into Ezras Noshim. Now you're higher up. You took the 15 steps Nikanor, you have even higher up. You walked into Azora. You walked past the Ezras Kohanim, another 2.5 amos, and you're higher up. You walked up the 12 steps of the Ulam, you're now even higher up. So inside this building, you are standing 22 amas higher than if you were in the Har Habayis area. This is the Ulam, this is the Heichal, Shulchan, Menorah, and Mizbeach for Ketores, and behind that the Kodesh Kadoshim. And this is the building we're learning about, and this is why we're coming to the end of Masechta, and Miyat Hashem will make a siyum at the end of next week, because the Masechta has gone from east, Har Habayis, through Sorei, through Chayil, through Ezras Nothrim, through the 15 steps, through the Shar Nikanor, Ezras Yisrael, Ezras Kohanim, the quote-unquote Beis HaMitbachayim, the butcher area to shech the animals, the Mizbeach. We spent quite a bit of time on learning how to build the Mizbeach, the Kior, the steps to the Ulam, the doors here, 4 doors or 8 doors to get into the Heichal. And now we're learning about the walls around the Heichal. And we're almost to the end of the Beis HaMikdash area, and behind that is going to be again some room for the Har Habayis. We're learning now about these walls of the Heichal. I mentioned that there are 2 sheets. Before we go into that, let me just go back to diagram 11. The aerial photo superimposing the Beis HaMikdash on today's Har Habayis. This is the eastern wall. This is the western wall. This is what we would call the Kosel Maravi up here. So you came down from Har HaZeisim. You walked through the eastern wall of the Har Habayis. You walked into, you can see the gold. It says, in the gold area, it says Ezras Noshim. You came to Shar Nikanor. You entered Shar Nikanor, and you're now in the Azorah. And this is the Azorah we've been learning about. This Azorah has the Mizbeach, and then it has the separate structure in it, the Ulam and the Heichal. When we stand at the Kosel Maravi, we're standing here. We're at the west, looking east. The way we've been learning, and the way Masechta Middos is set up, is coming down Har HaZeisim and looking east to west. And again, from the beginning of the Masechta, I explained you need to change your perspective when you want to build the Beis HaMikdash. You're going east to west until you get to the Kodesh Kadoshim. When we stand at the Kosel Maravi, we're close to the Kodesh Kadoshim and distant from the eastern gate. But we've been learning about moving from the eastern gate towards the west. There's been a request for me to explain the walls of the Heichal, Rashi versus the Rambam. I don't want to go into it, and that's why I introduced the idea by saying I don't want to confuse you, but just for a moment to understand the difference between Rashi and Rambam. We go back to diagram 31. The Ulam. The Ulam is a very narrow area. It's 11 amas wide. And then you walked into the doors of the Heichal, however you open these doors. We talked about that. But now look at the walls around the Heichal. Let's look at what's marked as Hay. Hay goes from east, west, makes a turn south, and comes down back east. So wall number 1 around the Heichal is a thin wall and a completely open area. If I follow Hay from the Tzafon side, where my pen is pointing to, there's a wall to the right, there's a wall to the left, but the actual area between the 2 walls is open. It is a corridor, and it goes all around. If I go to the next wall, it also has 2 walls, but between the walls, there's a completely empty corridor that goes completely around the Heichel. If I go to Gimel, Gimel has two walls, and between the two walls, there's a completely empty corridor that goes around the Heichel. When I get to Beis, I have two walls with a completely empty corridor that comes to a dead end at the west. It does not turn, and your diagram is showing you it does not turn, it just ends at the west. Aleph, two walls. In between the two walls, there's a corridor that goes from east to west, dead end at west. And this is true for both sides. So the first three walls on each side of the Heichel, which connect to each other, encircle the Heichel. The last two walls, the northernmost walls and the southernmost walls, only go from east to west and become a dead end. I didn't do that well. The last two walls on the northern and southern side go up and end, go up and end. These two walls end, these two walls end. Whereas the three walls right around and next to the Heichel go up, turn, come back down. Go up, turn, and come back down. This is a Rambam picture because the Rambam understands the word ta or te as corridors. There are 38 corridors. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 places in which the Kohanim can walk. On top of that, there was a second floor built identical to this floor. There's another 5 corridors. There's 10. Immediately above that, there's 5 more corridors. Now you have 15. They did the same thing on the other side. 15 and 15 corridors that you can walk through. That's 30. In the west, there's only 3 corridors. This one, and this one. These two in the north and the south could not create a corridor in the west because they became dead ends. They didn't come around to create 2 more corridors. So in the north and the south, you have 5 corridors on top of 5, on top of 5. 15 times 2 is 30. In the west, you only have the first 3 corridors that encircle the Heichel. 3, 3, and on top of that, they took the 3 and they made the same width into only 2 corridors. 3, 3, 2, 6, 30, and you have 6 plus 2 is 8. 15 to the north, 15 to the south, 30. In the west, you have 3, 3, and 2. That's 8. That's 38. And that was the beginning of Mishnah Gimel, page 59. Shloshim ushmonim ta'im hayusham. There were 38 corridors. This is the picture we've used, and this is the picture we're going to continue using today. Rashi has a completely different understanding along with other Rishonim. Rashi's picture, which is the picture, our classic number 3 picture, which comes from the Mishnayos Kahati, the famous Kahati picture. What you have here is a solid wall, a solid wall, a solid wall. There are no corridors here. What you have is inside, between 2 walls, 5 rooms. There are 5 rooms showed between these 2 thick walls. 5 rooms between these 2 thick walls. The Rambam has this thick wall open. You can walk inside this wall. You can walk inside this wall. You can walk inside this wall. Rashi has these walls sealed. And when we talk about 38, we're talking about these rooms. between two of the walls, they left an opening, and in there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 walls. And on top of that, they built a new floor with 5 walls. On top of that, they built a new floor with 5 compartments. Sorry. And they did that on both sides. In the back, they had 3 on top of 3 on top of 2. That's Rashi. So Rashi there's a complete difference between these two pictures. The Rambam is showing thin walls with open corridors between 2 walls. Rashi is showing regular walls completely sealed, and between 2 of the walls there is an opening, and in there are 5 compartments. We're going to continue using the Rambam's picture because it's simpler for our point of view to explain the Mishnayos. We're now on page 62 of our Mishnayos, and we're describing one of the corridors according to the Rambam. We can continue to use 31. This is the Heichel. 5 corridors. 5 corridors on the south, 5 corridors on the north. We are looking now at the northern corridors. The first corridor is called Kosel Heichel. It's the wall right around the Heichel. The next corridor is called Te. Corridor. It has no specific name. The next wall is called Kosel Te, the wall of the corridor, which itself is a corridor. The next corridor is what we're learning about now. And that, if you look Kosel Heichel, the wall around the Heichel. Te, the corridor. Next to it, Kosel Te, the wall for the corridors. And we're right here now, Masiba. I'm going to learn about what's in this Masiba. And next to the Masiba to the north is Kosel Masiba, the wall around the Masiba. We are right here now in the Masiba. What was the Masiba? We have to go back a moment. We have to get a diagram. Diagram 37. The wall around the Heichel, that's furthest wall from the Heichel, the northernmost wall, is called the wall of the Masiba. This next corridor is called Masiba. This is what we're learning about. This wall is wall of the Te. This is the Te, and this is wall of Kosel. If you're looking at it like this, you have the Heichel, and this is the northern side of the Heichel. Corridor 1, corridor 2, corridor 3, corridor 4, corridor 5. It is corridor 4 right here that we're going to be learning about. Remember that the Heichel has 5 corridors to the north, 5 corridors to the south, as you can see in the picture below. These are the southern corridors. These are the northern corridors. We're learning about the northern corridors, and we are focused on them because this is where the door is. Remember, we said the Heichal has a big door and then two small doors, one to the north, one to the south. The door on the south was never open except for Mashiach or for other exceptions. This was the door that was used in the second base and make you see a little door. Diagram 34B, the door of the Heichal, the big door, the southern little door that was not used for opening, Mashiach, Kohen Gadol, we talked about the exceptions. We're not focusing here on the southern side of the Heichal door, which has its own corridors. We are not focused on that. We're focused to the northern side of the Heichal, where there is that northern little door through which they did go in and open the Heichal doors. And it is the northern side of the Heichal, those 5 corridors that we are focused in right now. Okay, this is where we are. Diagram 37. And we're in the corridor that's called Masiba. It is the second to the end of all the northern corridors. Wall of Heichal, Teh, and this has the door that we just looked at, the northern little door. Wall of Teh, Masiba, and wall of Masiba. Inside this Masiba is what we're going to be learning about. Mishnah, page 62. Umasiba haisa ole mikeren mizraches sephonis. A Masiba, it's a ramp that went all around the Heichal, went up. It started on the northeast side of the Heichal. Lekeren Sephonis Marabis, it went to the northwest side. Sheba hayu olim legagot hata'im. It is through this ramp that you were able to get to the roof of the corridors. If the corridors, the roofs needed to be fixed, you take a look, for example, at 38B. The Heichal is a very tall structure. We're going to learn about that. It's 100 amos high. It's over 200 feet high. But the ta'im on both sides are like wings. The ta'im are only 18 amos high. Each floor, the sub-basement, the basement, which we talked about yesterday, is 6 amos high. The second level is 6 amos high. The third level is 6 amos high. So the ta'im are 18 amos high. If work needed to be done on the ta'im, there was an issue with the roof. How did you get to the roof here? So this is what the Mishnah is now going to describe. There's a Masiba. Diagram 37. There's the corridor called Masiba. In there, there's a ramp. And this ramp is going to go all around the Heichal. Let's take out our new handout, a new diagram 40.
Get that. No.
We're at the northern wall, northern side of the Heichal, and we see that there's a Masechta. I made a pen mark in the Masechta. It's an arrow. The Masechta is one of the two last corridors to the Heichal, which means it comes to a dead end. Inside this Masechta, there's a ramp. You walk up the ramp from east to west, and now you come to a dead end. At this dead end, there was another ramp, which we'll see in a picture in a moment. You then went up that ramp, and now you're at the southern side. And now there's a ramp that turned and went west to east. And here's your pictures. You went up the Masechta, northern side, you went in the corridor, up the ramp. You're at a dead end. You can't go any further. Outside here, there was a ramp, and that's what this picture is showing you, the continuation of the ramp. It's showing you going from east to the west of the Heichal. The Masechta comes to a dead end. It's opened at the top so you can walk out now and go up a ramp that's now on the western side of the Heichal, and you're going from north to south. Once you got to the southern wall, you then walked up, and that's picture 40C. You now have another ramp that you walked up. In other words, you are going up the Masechta. You have to follow each picture in order. 40B. You're walking up the Masechta. This is east. I put an E there. You start in the east. You enter the corridor. However you entered the corridor, we're not going to go into that right now. You enter the corridor. The corridor has in it a ramp. You go up, 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 and you've gone from east to west. On the northern side of the Heichal, you've gone from east to west. You now walk out of the roof of this corridor. The ramp came to its highest point. You walked out. You're outside now. You're on the roof. And now you're able to work on any side of the roof you want. You're on the roof. The Masechta came to a dead end at the west. The ramp came to an end. It was open at the top. You walked out, and you can work on the entire roof of the Ta'im. The Mishnah is now describing a new issue. What happens if you want to work not on the roof of the Ta'im? How high were these Ta'im? 18 amos high from the ground. 6 amos high basement, 6 amos high level 1, 6 amos high level 2. You're 18 amos high. And now you have the ramp that took you up to the roof of these 18 amos, and you can work on the roof. We have another issue. What happens if you want to work on the roof of the Heichal itself? How high was the Heichal? This is diagram 39, which we looked at a bit yesterday or the day before. This is your view of the Heichal. You have the northern side corridors with that little door. the southern side corridors, which are not our focus right now. The northern side corridors and the southern side corridors rise to 18 amos from the ground and end. You went into the Masechta, went to the back, the ramp opened, the roof opened in the back, you went up the ramp, came out, you were able to work on the roof of the Ta'im. What happens if you needed to work, for example, in the Aliyah? And this is a whole new idea that we're going to introduce now. This is the Heichal. The Heichal is made up of Heichal and Aliyah. This structure, as you can see it showing you, is 100 amas high. How you break down these 100 amas, you see it's broken down step by step, which maybe we get to today, maybe we don't, I'm not sure. We'll see how much time we have. From this base right here of the Heichal until the top point, the highest point of the Heichal is 100 amas. Those 100 amas are broken down basically into two parts. The lower part of the Heichal, which we know as Heichal, and then there's a ceiling, which you see right here, and then there's an attic above the ceiling. Each of these two parts are 40 amos high. The Heichal that we work in, this Heichal has the Shulchan, Menorah, Mizbeach, HaKtoris in it. This is 40 amos high. Then there's a roof, a ceiling. Above that ceiling, there's an attic that's 40 amos high. And above that, there's roof. So if you needed to work on the roof of the Ta'im, you went into the Masechta, you came out at the dead end through the ramp, and you were able to work over here on top of the compartments, on top of the corridors. What happens if work needed to be done in this room, in this attic? Repair work needed to be done in this attic. That is what the Mishnah is going to explain to us now. Now you must bear in mind that this attic is above two rooms. This Heichal here is the Heichal, and in the back of the Heichal there's a partition, and behind that there's the Kodesh Kodashim. The floor above the attic, the front part of the attic is the Heichal. The front part of the attic is right above the Shulchan, the Menorah, and the Mizbeach HaKtoris. But the back part of the attic is right above the Kodesh Kodashim. So the lower part of the Heichal has the Shulchan, Menorah, and the Mizbeach, a partition, behind that the Kodesh Kodashim. That part of the Heichal was 40 amos high and a ceiling. Above that, there's 40 amos of attic, but that attic is right above two rooms. It's above Heichal and above Kodesh Kodashim. Now what happens if there was work needed in the attic up here? How do you get into this attic? And perhaps even more interesting, what happens if something had to be fixed in the Kodesh Kodashim? Repair work needed to be done. The Kohen Gadol is only allowed to go into the Kodesh Kodashim once a year on Yom Kippur, and you can't do repair work on Yom Kippur. So what happens if repair work needed to be done in the Kodesh Kodashim? How did you get into the Kodesh Kodashim? So we have two questions. If you want to do repair work on the roof of the Ta'im, you went into the Masechta. The Masechta is a corridor that had a ramp. It went up, till it came to the dead end of the west. You walked out of the roof. There was an opening, and you were free to go all around the roof of the Ta'im and fix it. What happens if you needed to get into this attic to fix either the room above the Heichal or the room above the Kodesh Kodashim? How did you get in there? And how did you get into the Kodesh Kodashim to fix the Kodesh Kodashim? You can't just walk into the Kodesh Kodashim. That's only the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. And that's what the Mishnah is going to describe now. So we begin the Mishnah again. Umasiba Haisa, page 62. Umasiba Haisa Ayla Miker Mizrachas Sephinis. There was this Masiba, this corridor that had a ramp in it. It went from the northeast corner to the northwest corner, which we just looked at, and it came to a dead end. Shabbat hayu olam legagot hatayim. Through this ramp, which ended at the northwest wall, there was an opening in the roof. You walked out of the ramp, off the ramp, and you're on the roofs. Next, haya ola b'masiba. You walk up the masiba upanov l'mayrav, and you're facing west. You're going from east to west. Hilech al kol pnei hatzafon. You walked against the entire northern wall of northern side of the Heichal, through the Masiba, up the ramp, Achu Megil Amayra, until you get to the western wall of the Heichal, dead end. Now you walk out of the roof at the western side of the ramp, Higil Amayra, V'hofach Panav L'dorom. Now you turn your face, you make sort of a left, and you turn your face to the south. Hilech kol pnei amayra, you walk across the whole western side of the Heichal, ad shumagil adoro, until you get to the southern side of the Heichal. Higil adoro, you came to the southern side of the Heichal, v'hofach panav lemizrach. Now you turn your face to the east. And now he's walking on the southern side of the Heichal, Achu Magil Pischa Shel Eichel, until he gets to the doorway, Pischa Shel Aliyah, till he gets to the doorway of the Aliyah, the attic. Shepischa Shel Aliyah Pasuach Ladorom. The opening of the Aliyah, the opening of the attic, has its opening on the southern side. So this is what we were describing a moment ago. You just have to follow one picture to the next. 40B and 40C. 40B, this is the east. Person entered the Masiba. Follow my pen mark in there. Went up the Masiba. At the end, the Masiba came to a dead end. There's an opening in the roof. You walk out, and if it's the roof you need to work on, you're now on the roof of the Ta'im. And you can work on the Ta'im. But if you wanted to get into the attic, you're here now on the roof of the Ta'im. What happens if you want to get into the attic? So this is what's being shown in 40B. When you left the Masiba and you're on the roof of the Ta'im, there is a ramp that's going on the western side of the Heichel from north to south. So you're walking across the western wall of the Heichel, north towards south. You get to south, you turn again, and you walk from west to east. So you're now on the southern side of the Heichel, and you're walking up the ramp again, and you're going from west to east. When you get there to west to east, this is where you are now, diagram 40C. Dorom, you're south, and you see that there is a ramp that's going up, and now you see two doors. These two doors are on the southern wall of the Heichal. And these two doors are exactly where, if you go into these doors, you're in the attic. If you go through those doors right there, you go through these doors, you're in the attic of the Heichal. And in the attic of the Heichal, there is the part of the attic that's above Heichel and part of the attic that's on top of Kodesh Kodashim. And that's why there are two doors in 40C. One door, when you entered the eastern door, you went in there, you were in the attic of the Heichel. If you opened the western door and you went in there, you were in the attic above the Kodesh Kodashim. So if you needed to work in the attic of the Heichel, you use the eastern door on the southern wall of the Heichel, and you're in the area of attic above Heichel. If you needed to work above the Kodesh Kodashim, you walked through the western door, and you were able to be in the attic right above the Kodesh Kodashim. And that's what the Mishnah just explained. So now we have a system by which, going back to diagram 39, we have a system by which you can get to the roof of the ta'im, to work on the roof of the ta'im, by going up the masiba and walking out the ramp and not going any higher. You can work on these ta'im. If you needed to work inside the attic, we then had to go up additional ramps until you got to the southern side, and then there were two doors. The eastern door would let you into the part of the attic that's above Heichel. The western door would let you into the part of the attic that's above the Kodesh Kodashim. So you have an ability to get to the top of the ta'im. You have an ability to get inside the attic. But what happens if you had to work on the roof of the entire Heichel? That's 100 amas high. We know how to get to the roof of the ta'im. We know how to get inside the attic of the Heichel. How do you get here? How do you get to the roof? So that's what the Mishnah describes now. And at this opening into the attic, which was on the southern side of the Heichel, there were two boards that were made of cedar. And through those, you can go to the roof of the aliyah. And this is shown again in diagram 40C. You have those two doors on the southern side of the Heichel. One, the eastern door, allows you to go into the attic above Heichel. The western door allows you to enter the attic above Kodesh Kodashim. And here you can see there are two sticks, and the sticks have holes in them. And there's a question how you use these holes. But at any rate, these two sticks went to the top. Those two sticks went all the way to the top of the structure. Remember, the doors allow you into here. But what happens if you want to get all the way up here? So there were two sticks. Make sure I have the right side. Okay, there were two sticks. And through the sticks, you were able to climb up and work on the top of the roof if that was necessary. So now we have a way to work on the ta'im by just walking up the ramp of the masiba. If we needed to work in the attic, we continued with the ramp that went all the way around north, west, and south. On the south, there were two doors. If we needed to get to the highest point, the roof of the whole building, the Heichel, then there were two sticks at the door to the aliyah. You climbed up and you were on the roof. V'rashe, the Mishnah says on page 62, V'rashe pispasin mavdilin ba'aliyah bein hakodesh lebein kodesh hakadashim. We're in the attic. Whatever reason, you needed to go into the attic to fix something, the attic of the Heichel. The front part of the attic, the eastern part of it, is right above the Heichel. The western, the back part of the attic, is the attic above the Kodesh Kodashim. Well, how do you know where you are? It's important to know even when you're in the attic, just like when you're in here, you need to be careful where you go. A Kohen can go into the front part of the Heichel to light the menorah, to bring the ketores, to work with the lechem upon him on the shulchan, but he can't go beyond the partition into the Kodesh Kodashim. Only a Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur can do that. Well, when we move above that to the attic, the front part of the attic is attic Heichel. The back part of the attic is attic Kodesh Kodashim. And you have to be careful before you step into the attic of Kodesh Kodashim. So how do you know once you went into the attic where you were? So the Mishnah says, V'roshe Pispasin, there were, as we mentioned, according to Amshad, in other parts of Middos, there were like fists, wooden or fists made out of rock that were on the walls and showed a person, this is the borderline. This is where attic Heichel ends, and beyond this attic Kodesh Kodashim begins. And you can see that in diagram 41, there are actually two partitions. This is a picture of the attic of the Heichel. And between the eastern part, the eastern attic, which is Heichel, and the western attic, which is Kodesh Kodashim, first of all, there was a paroches, there was a curtain, just like there were curtains on level 1. Right below, in the real Heichel, there's a partition between the Heichel and the Kodesh Kodashim. In the attic above, there's a paroches between the east and the west to separate the Heichel attic from the Kodesh Kodashim attic. Besides that, because they wanted to emphasize that there's a difference between the place and the attic, they also put on the wall, you can see in the diagram, they put on the wall sort of almost like a fist, rocks. And so you had two borders in the attic, separating eastern attic, which is attic above Heichel, from western attic, which is above Kodesh Kodashim. You had a curtain and you had these fists on the wall. Now, the last thing we didn't do, and this is the next part of the Mishnah, we've already talked about how you can get to the top of the corridors, the roof, to fix them. You went into the Masechta on the ramp. What happens if you had to work in the attic? Then there were ramps going to the west, to the south. On the south, there were two doors into the attic. We already learned how you can get to the roof. There were two sticks next to the door, and you can climb up to get to the roof. What happens if repair work needed to be done in the Kodesh Kodashim? Do you just walk into the Heichel and walk through the paroches and go into the Kodesh Kodashim to work? The answer is no. The only time you walk through the Heichel, through the curtain, into the Kodesh Kodashim is Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. How do you get into the Kodesh Kodashim during the year if work needs to be done to repair it? So Mishnah tells us, "Valulim haya psuchim ba'aliyah lebeis Kodesh HaKadoshim." There were sort of openings in the floor, in the attic of the Kodesh Kodashim, shebehem hayu mishalshlin es ha'umanim b'tevos. Through these openings in the floor, they would lower down the craftsmen who would be sitting in boxes, and then the craftsmen would be able to do their work in the Kodesh Kodashim. To the extent possible, we avoid people looking inside the Kodesh Kodashim. So if repair work needed to be done, they will lower it in there through a box. We'll take a look at it in a moment. And the box was sealed on three sides. One side was open, and they were able to look at the area that needed repair only. And the rest of the box was solid. So they shouldn't be able to enjoy looking in the Kodesh Kodashim, the gold, etc. That's not a place that the human eye should be looking at except for Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur. And that's how they did that. What does this mean, holes in the floor, and they lowered them in? Here we are. 42. Diagram 42. Here's the western wall of the Heichel. Here's the southern wall of the Heichel. You have to imagine for a moment that this wall is sealed. The only reason they made it transparent is that you can see the boxes. It's a sealed wall. You can see the ramp. The ramp took you from the northern wall all the way to the western wall, all the way to the southern wall. And here, on the southern wall, you had the two doors. You walked in the doors and you're in the attic above the Heichel. Now you need to get into the Kodesh Kodashim to do repairs. So you walk through the curtains that are in the attic. In the attic, Kodesh Kodashim attic, which is the western part of the attic, there are holes in the floor. In these holes, there was chains or heavy-duty rope and boxes at the bottom of the rope. These boxes are sealed on three sides and open on one side. They would lift them up with the rope through the hole. A person would go in there. They would lower him into the Kodesh Kodashim, and he could not see out of three sides. And then he would do whatever fixing needed to be done in the Kodesh Kodashim. There's a question about how many holes were actually in the floor. But this is how Kodesh Kodashim was repaired. Now, while we consider the Holy of Holies, the Kodesh Kodashim, the holiest place in the Beis HaMikdash, and only a Kohen Gadol only can enter there once a year, in certain halachas, we give the attic of the Kodesh Kodashim even more greater kedusha, because into this attic, the Rambam tells us, he learns this out from Chazal, a person can only go once every 7 years. You are not allowed to go into this attic above Kodesh Kodashim except once every 7 years to inspect to see if repair work needed to be done. So whereas in the Kodesh Kodashim, the western part of the Heichel, the Kohen went in once a year, the attic above the Kodesh Kodashim, a person went in once every 7 years only to check if any repair work needed to be done, and he would be lowered in to the Kodesh Kodashim through this box rope system. And that's the Heichel. Now, who would go in to fix this? Preferably a Kohen, but the Kohen has to be a craftsman. He has to know how to fix gold. He has to know how to fix things. You can't find a Kohen who's capable, then you can send a Levi. If you can't find a Levi who's capable, you can send a Yisrael. You can even send a Yisrael who's Tameh. And the Gemara has a discussion about the priorities, who should go before a Tameh, a Tahor. What happens if you have a Tameh Kohen, but a Tahor Yisrael? They can both do the repair work. The Kohen right now is Tameh, the Yisrael is Tahor. Who would you send in that discussion in the Gemara? But going into the Kodesh Kodashim once every 7 years to repair it, preferably would be a Kohen who's a craftsman. If it wasn't a Kohen, it could be a Levi, it could be Yisrael. So let's take a look quickly now at our Heichel. Diagram 39. In front of the Heichel is the Ulam. That's probably the best place to start. Diagram 3. 12 steps were in the Ulam. From the Ulam, which is 11 amos wide, from east to west, we now have doors of Heichel. These were the huge doors of the Heichel. We did not open these huge doors of the Heichel directly. We had a little door on the western side of the Heichel, the Pishpeish, through which we entered and then opened the Heichel doors from the behind. This structure, Ulam and Heichel, are higher than the Azara around it. The Azara around our Heichel is 16 amos higher than the Harabayas. The Ulam and the Heichel are another 6 amos higher. It is 22 amos higher than the Heichel. And that's by virtue of the 12 steps in front of the Ulam. Now we're going to leave this picture. This is just a ground view picture. We don't see any height here. Diagram 39 is that structure. The Ulam is in front. We have 5 ta'im to the north, 5 ta'im to the south. In the north, we have the door that we can use to get into the corridors. One of the corridors, the one second to the northern wall, is the Masechta. You walk up the Masechta, and you came to the dead-end northern wall. You walked up the Masechta, you came to the dead-end wall, and now you were able to work on the gag, the roof of the ta'im. If you needed to work in the aliyah, back to 439, if you wanted to work on the roof of the ta'im, you had the Masechta, the ramp to get to. The ramp would open up to the roof of the ta'im. If you needed to work in the attic above, you would continue walking on a ramp on the western wall, on the southern wall, and the southern wall ramp brought you high enough to get into 2 doors that were on the southern wall, the Heichel. One door that was to the east opened up to the attic of Heichel. One door opened to the western part, which was attic of Kodesh Kadoshim. The attic of Kodesh Kadoshim had the holes in the floor. Attic of the Heichel in the Kodesh Kadoshim western side had the holes in the floor through which you were able to lower a person to fix the Kodesh Kadoshim. If you needed to fix the actual roof of the Heichel, which is 100 amos high, it's 100 amos from the ground, then on the southern wall of the Heichel, where the 2 doors were to get into the attic, there were 2 poles. You can climb the poles and get to the roof here of the Heichel. This is our Heichel. Ta'im to the north, Ta'im to the south, the Heichel, the roof, the attic Heichel, the roof. So if we go now back to our diagram 1, we see this majestic building inside the Azara. It's a very tall building. It's 100 amos high. The Ulam, the front rectangle, is 100 amos high. The building behind it, which is the Heichel, is 100 amos high. But there's a difference. The Heichel, the back building, is 100 amos high, but it has a roof in the middle. And so there's a lower floor and an attic. The ulam, which is in front, the rectangular building, is narrow. It's only 11 amas wide, but it has no attic. It's a building that goes from ground all the way 100 amas high. Now, how did they support this building? The back part of the building is the heichal. It has 2 floors. So the floor that's in the middle, the floor of the attic, is a support between the 2 walls, all 4 walls, and it held the structure together. The ulam did not have 2 floors. It's just walls that went from ground level all the way over 200 feet high. What supported it? We learned about that earlier in the Mishnayos. Above the door of the ulam, there were poles that went, or beams that went from above the door of the ulam to the wall of the heichal. Beams that were put in the top of the door of ulam until top of heichal, and that's what supported the walls of the ulam. So the ulam is 100 amas high without any floors. It's just one tall building, 11 amas wide. The heichal is also 100 amas high behind it, but it's made of a ground floor and an attic. We're going to read the next Mishnah quickly for those of you who love measurements, so you can begin to understand the measurements. Mishnah Vav. V'ha'heichal, the heichal that we just built, the corridors, level 1, attic, the masiba, the ram, going all around, the doors on the southern wall of the heichal, the holes in the attic of the floor of the Kodesh Kodashim, the curtain in the attic. We built the heichal. How big is this heichal? Diagram 39. First, we're going to deal with height. V'ha'heichal meya al meya. It's 100 amas wide and 100 amas long, which we're not going to deal with today because the first subject of the Mishnah is going to be height. Al rum meya. The height is 100. And now the Mishnah is going to tell you how you get to a height of 100. Ha'otem sheish amos. Otem is literally the foundation. If you go to diagram 3, we have 12 steps going into the ulam. These 12 steps, each one was half an amma high, which made the ulam 6 amos higher. So this whole area, this square, and including the heichal, is 6 amos higher than the surrounding azara. We know that on the northern side and on the southern side, whichever is which, right? This should be the southern side with the kiyar. The southern side and the northern side, what's underneath them? The steps lifted up this area by 6 amos. What's going on underneath this wing and underneath this wing? The northern wing, the southern wing, and the northern wing. What's going on there are the basement ta'im. Take a look at picture diagram 43. This is what the Mishnah is now calling otem. The otem is the foundation. In front of this otem are the 12 steps. Well, you have 12 steps. You're going to go up into this structure. What's holding the structure up? So they had to bring dirt and rock and put it underneath the heichal. Only underneath the heichal there's dirt and rock to support it because it is 6 amas higher by virtue of these steps. But this area to the right and to the left of the steps was not filled with dirt and stone. It was still empty. What did they put there? They built the first level of corridors, what we call the basement level of corridors. And there were 5 corridors, and then 5 above that, and 5 above that. So this is called otem, the filling. The filling underneath the floor of the heichal, because the heichal was lifted 6 amos off the ground. If it's lifted 6 amos off the ground, what's underneath the floor of the heichal? You have to fill it with something. That's called otem. So the Mishnah says, ha'otem sheish amos. And now diagram 39 is going to be easy. The otem is 6 amos, because the stairs lifted at 6 amos, they had to fill 6 amos. V'gavho aboyim amma. The height of the heichal is 40. Amma kiyar. They first put a decorative roof on. This is not a roof to protect from rain. It's a decorative roof, perhaps stone. And in the stone, they etched carvings and decorated and painted it. So when you looked from the floor up to the heichal, you saw a beautiful ceiling. That's the kiyar, the amma kiyar. So that takes up 1 amma in height. V'amasayim beit dilfa. Then they left 2 ammas completely empty, and it's called the beit dilfa. Beit delef, as we know, means drips. If there was a leak, and this is a lot of times where modern roofs are built. The Beis Yosef talks about this. He says in his time, the 1500s, they were still building roofs with beit dilfa. If there was a leak, the water would leak into this 2 amma opening, and there would be a place where the water would funnel out. So instead of the damage and the mold occurring to the decorative ceiling, between the decorative ceiling and the solid ceiling, there were 2 ammas called the beit dilfa. If anything seeped through the solid ceiling, it came into this area, not sitting directly on the decorative ceiling and damaging it. It was able to be poured out through a funnel system. On top of that, you have amma tikra, 1 amma of a solid type concrete roof, v'amma ma'aziva. And on top of that, there was also an amma, which is a different kind of roof, to protect that roof. So what you have here is a roof that's 5 ammas made of 4 parts. Amma kiyar, 1. Amasayim beit dilfa, 2 ammas of empty space called the drip area. Amma tikra, 1 amma of the thick, heavy roof. V'amma ma'aziva, and 1 amma of what you can call a ma'aziva. Maybe it was tar, maybe it was board, whatever it was. They constructed this roof system. It took 5 ammas, but it was 4 parts. Kiyar, dilfa, tikra, ma'aziva. And those 4 parts are right here, and they're noted. 4 parts take up 5 amos. Now you come to the attic. The attic is 40 amos high. So the first floor of the heichal is 40 amos high, but it's built on a 6 amma filling of dirt and rock. 6, for those who are counting, 6 foundational rock, 40 height of heichal, 5 made up of the first set of roofing, 40 again of the attic of the heichal. And then they did the same kind of roofing construction. 4 parts, 5 ammas. Amma kiyar, the decorative roof. Amasayim beit dilfa, 2 ammas of the drip area. Amma tikra, the thick roof, the strong roof. Amma ma'aziva, and an amma above that to seal it again. So what do we have so far? We have 6 filling, 40, 5 for the roof system, 40, 5 for the second roof system. Why you needed 2 roof systems? Why didn't you just have a roof system up here? It would avoid all kinds of dripping. You didn't need a second roof system here. and it was simply for the beauty of the building to keep it consistent. The bottom floor is 40, the top floor is 40, and they made the roofing system consistent between the two places. V'sholosh amos maka, and then on the roof they put a maka, a gate that was 3 amos high. This has nothing to do with the mitzvah of maka, that on a roof you have to have a gate for safety, because that maka has to be 10 tfachim. This is much higher, it's 3 amos high, and again, it's for the beauty of the building to have a gate around the top roof. For amma kola orev, and then above that there's an amma called the kola orev. The kola orev, we'll discuss in a moment exactly what it was, but the kola orev was to make sure that pigeons, raven, birds did not sit on top of this high building, the heichal, and dirty it. We all have this problem in our windowsills. The birds perch there. We have it on the roof of our buildings. They perch there. We don't want this to happen on the roof of the heichal. So they use something called an amma kola orev. Orev is a raven. Kola orev, to get rid of the ravens. What this exactly was, we'll discuss in a moment. So now we have, for the mathematicians, we have 6 foundational rock and dirt, 40 heichal, 5 roofing system 1, 40 attic, 5 roofing system 2, 3 gate, and above the gate was this metal steel thing that went around the top of the gate to keep pigeons and birds away. If you do your math, from here to all the way to the top, the heichal is 100 amos. Now, obviously, the ta'im, the sides, are not 100 amos. The ta'im are 18 amos high, 6 amos level 1, 6 amos level 2, 6 amos level 3, 18 amos. And the rest of the heichal rose to 82 amos higher. Top of heichal to bottom of heichal, 100, bottom of ta'im to top of ta'im, 18. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Rabbi Yehuda says on page 64, Lahoya kola orev ola min amida, the kola orev, this thing that kept the birds away, should not be included in the 100. Ela arba amos hoya maika. The gate on top was 4. So rather than 6, 40, 5, 40, 5, and 3 gate and 1 to deal with the pigeons, he says the gate was 4, and therefore instead of 3 it became 4, and that was your 100. And on top of the gate of 4, there was this thing to keep pigeons away. Now, what is this thing to keep pigeons away? So this is a very interesting discussion. The Rambam holds that on the top of the roof of the heichal, on top of the gate that went around north, south, west, east, there was a thin piece of steel that went above that gate. And the thin piece of steel was sharp at the top. We're not talking about right now what you can get in the Rambam. We're not talking about what you get in the hardware stores, these little things you glue down that has spikes in them. We're not talking about that. We're talking about a complete piece of steel, thin steel, north, east, south, west, and at the top of the steel, it was sharp like a knife, and therefore a bird could not sit on it. And this went around the gate. That's the Rambam Shita. The question that people ask on the Rambam is, well, a bird can fly above that gate and stand on the actual, sit on the roof of the heichal. That's all you're protecting is the gate of the heichal. They won't sit on the gate, but if they fly above that, they can sit on the entire roof of the heichal. So therefore, Rashi holds that it's more of the kind of a thing you buy in your hardware store. There were metal pieces that were put on the entire roof of the heichal with spikes coming out of them, and therefore no birds were able to land on the entire roof. Perhaps the most interesting explanation to this kola orev belongs to a Rishon called the Aruch, and this Aruch is quoted in Tosfos in Masechta Erchin and Dafov. Kala Orev, the Sefer HaOrach, he's a Rishon. He lived about 700 years ago. He says the Kala Orev was something that gardeners use. They make something that looked like a man, which we call a scarecrow, and they built a scarecrow and they put it on the top of the roof of the Heichel. No metal, no spikes. They put a scarecrow, the form of a man, on top of the roof of the Heichel, and that scared the birds away. That's the explanation of the Aruch to what the Kala Orev was. Other Rishonim disagree with him. Chas v'sholom, there would be a form of a human being on top of the Heichel, which can lead people to think not right thoughts. So we have three shittas about this Kala Orev to avoid pigeons sitting and dirtying the Heichel. The Rambam, it was a thin piece of metal that was sharp on top that just went around the gate. Rashi, who says that it was actually pieces of metal on the entire roof with spikes coming out, and the Aruch, who holds that it was some kind of scarecrow. This is our Heichel, and we've now learned about diagram 39, our Ta'im, 18 amas high, each level having 5 corridors, 5 on top of 5 on top of 5 to the north and to the south, 3 on top of 3, and 2 on top of that to the west, 38 ta'im. They rose to a level of 18 amas. The Heichel in the middle rose to a height of 100. And on this picture, this diagram, you have the breakdown of 6, 40, roofing of 5, 40, roofing of 5, 3 gate, and 1 the Kala Orev, or according to Rabbi Yehuda, 4 gate, and then the Kala Orev. This structure that we just described is in diagram 1 now, this majestic building that sat inside the Azara. Outside, this is the Harabayas wall, this is Harabayas, Ezras Noshim, Azara. In the Azara, you have Ulam and Heichel. And the next Mishnayos, that will start next week, will deal with explaining, we've dealt with the height of the Heichel, we're going to deal with the width of the Heichel and the length of the Heichel. And for most of the rest of the Masechta, we're going to deal now with numbers and measurements of each part of the base Hamikdash, with the exception of a description of additional rooms. Each of you, I believe, got an email about the Lineda, the Siyum on Yom Hamishi next week. Bezrat Hashem Yisbarach. Hopefully, Mashiach will finish the Masechta with us and not just learn it with us, but he'll build it with us. Next Thursday, Lineda will have a Siyum as it's scheduled right now. The Siyum will be in my Chanaya at Noam Sheva. There'll be no tables. The plan is to have only chairs at least 2 meters apart, everyone wearing masks. We're trying to assemble a minyan. I believe we're at 9, so that we can say Kaddish. We will Zoom Thursday Shir from my Chanaya, and we will Zoom the Siyum from the Chanaya as well. The plan right now is that each person at the Siyum, men and women, are invited. Each person at the Siyum will get a little enclosed box that will have a small grape juice, a cup, a sealed mizonos, and perhaps some nuts. And we'll be able to have a simcha, having learned Mishnayos Middos. Round 1. You can keep on learning this over and over until you really understand it and understand each part of the building. So there is a sign-up sheet. I understand it went around. Anyone that's still interested, please contact Shmuel. I think the sheet is still available for sign-up on the site or the WhatsApp group. And those who want to participate, please join us. It's a large Chanaya. There will be plenty of room for everybody with 2 meters apart.